Hi, I'm Kari, the class manager at Topstitch Studio, and I'm going to show you how to get your machine set up. Today we're working with a Janome Mod 30 machine. It's a computerized machine. It might be a little different than what you're working with at home, and that's okay, but most sewing machines have the exact same layout. Just consult your manual to see if there are any differences between this machine and the one you work with at home. So the first thing we're going to do is turn on our machine, and it'll light up. All machines are built so that thread is going to come down through the needle from the top, and then there will be thread on a bobbin on the bottom here that's going to get intertwined with the needle thread. Below the needle here is the presser foot, and that is what puts weight on your fabric and tension. There's a lever on the inside of the sewing arm here that brings the foot up and down. You can change your presser foot based on the type of sewing that you're doing. Below the presser foot, these little jagged teeth here are called the feed dogs, and they are what grabs onto the fabric and pulls it through the machine as it's running. If we come around to the front of the machine here, this is our computer screen, and it shows us the type of stitch, the stitch width, and the stitch length. The first set of numbers here, the large 00, correspond to the stitch chart down here. 00 is your straight stitch, and that's gonna be your most regularly used stitch. The second set of numbers, 3.5 with a zigzag on top, that's your stitch width. In straight stitch, you don't have a width, so 3.5 just means that the needle is running straight down the center. If you were in a zigzag stitch, changing this number would make your stitch width wider or more narrow. The third number that says 2.4 and the dashes above it, that's your stitch length. That's gonna be how short or long your stitches are. You generally want it to be between 2 and 3 for a regular stitch length. If you go all the way up to, this machine goes up to 5, that's gonna be a long and loose stitch. It's great for basting, gathering, things that you're just temporarily holding in place. If you were to go the other direction, down to maybe 1.8 or 2, that's gonna be a short and tight stitch. So it's really good for reinforcing stitches where you want some extra strength. All machines also have a hand wheel over here. You always want to turn the hand wheel towards you, because that's the direction that the needle is going to be moving in. The hand wheel moves the needle up and down, as well as the foot pedal that is on the ground underneath the machine. So now we're ready to wind our bobbin and thread our needle. You're going to start with a spool of polyester thread and an empty bobbin. We'll pop off the cap up here and slide on the spool of thread. Put your cap back on. We're gonna start by taking our thread around this little silver ring here and catching it in it. And then we're gonna take our empty bobbin and take our thread through one of these little tiny holes on top of our bobbin at the top. And we're gonna pop it on the silver toggle here and push the whole thing over to the right so that it starts to register on our computer screen here. What's happening is that the needle is being disengaged so that only the bobbin is going to wind. So you'll hold your tail taut and then put your foot on the foot pedal and allow it to start winding. And once it's wound up a bit so that it's not going to come unwound, you can go and snip the tail and then just continue winding your bobbin. And it'll wind until it hits this little peg here that's like a sensor and tells it when to stop. And once it's finished winding, it's gonna stop. And now you're ready to disconnect it from your spool of thread. So you're just gonna snip through here to disengage it, pop the bobbin back over, so now we're back into regular sewing mode, and take it off. And then we're gonna place it in the bobbin casing. Make sure that it looks like the letter P and that the tail is coming over the top left, making the stem of a P instead of a Q. And you'll just drop it in. And then there's a little hook below the bobbin, and you're just gonna catch it in the hook and slide it back till it doesn't go any further. And we're gonna pause right here with that and go back up to the top and thread our machine. So we're gonna take it out of the ring here that we use to wind the bobbin and start to follow the numbers marked on our machine. We're gonna take it behind number 1, down 2, around and up 3, and around the silver take-up lever from right to left. If you don't see this take-up lever, turn your hand wheel towards you until it pops up. And then you want to bring the thread forward until it pops into the front opening of the silver take-up lever. And then we'll take it down until we get to this large flat hook 5. And then there's one more little feeder hook to the top left of the needle we're going to catch it in. And that just helps to feed the thread down the needle. And the last step is to thread our needle from front to back. I find that if you use your fabric scissors and snip off a little blunt tip, it makes it a little easier to thread. And also I'll pull the thread real nice and taut between my fingers so that I can kind of shoot it through the eye of the needle. And then we'll bring it underneath the presser foot and we're almost ready. The last step is to bring our threads together and intertwine them. What we're trying to do here is bring the bobbin thread up through the opening that the needle goes up and down. So I'm gonna hold my needle thread taut in my hand and turn my hand wheel toward me. And I'm gonna watch as my needle thread comes across the top of my bobbin and picks up the bobbin thread. And once it gets all the way to the right side, it's gonna almost snap. And then I know that it's done enough that I can then, with my needle thread, pull that loop the rest of the way up through the opening. And once I have that loop up, I can pull out the tail and slide both threads underneath the presser foot to the back left, put my bobbin case cover back on top, and we're ready to go.